I never planned on becoming a mother. Not like this, not with someone else's child, and certainly not with a secret that would shape an entire life. But sometimes love doesn't knock, it crashes in through guilt, through fear, through the quiet voice that tells you, you were meant to carry this. It was a Tuesday night when my sister showed up at my door. Rain-soaked, eyes hollow, hands trembling as she clutched her stomach. She was 7 months pregnant and completely alone. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She had taken a rough path, drugs, bad relationships, nights that turned into missing weeks. I had tried to help her before, but she always pushed me away with the same tired line, "I'm not your responsibility." But now she stood there, soaked and shivering, whispering, "I don't know where else to go." I let her in, made her tea, wrapped her in a blanket, and I listened. She had left the baby's father. He was dangerous, cruel in ways she wouldn't even put into words. She was scared, not just for herself, but for the life growing inside her. "I can't do this," she said, barely audible. "I'm not built to be a mom. I don't even trust myself to stay clean." Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and asked something I'll never forget. "Could you take her?" At first, I didn't understand. "Do you mean for a little while?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I mean it forever. Like she's yours." My chest tightened. I was single, worked a modest job at a local library, lived in a small rental house with 2 bedrooms and barely enough room for myself. But I also knew what it meant to carry someone else's burden, even if it wasn't fair, even if it was heavy. That's what love is, isn't it? It reminded me of something my grandmother used to say when we read the Bible together. God doesn't ask if you're ready, he asks if you're willing. I looked across the room at my sister, fragile, breaking, and painfully honest, and I said quietly, "Yes, I'll raise her as my own." She sobbed, and I held her like I hadn't in years. The next 2 months passed like a blur, doctor visits, court papers, arranging for legal guardianship, covering every possible track to make it clean, safe, and permanent. We told people she was my child, born a little early, no mention of my sister, no mention of the truth. When she gave birth, I was the one in the room. I held my sister's hand, whispered prayers into her hair, and when the baby cried for the first time, I wept, and the nurse asked, "Mom, do you want to hold her?" And I nodded, though the word mom hit like a wave. I cradled her and whispered, "You are loved, you are chosen, and you are safe." We named her Eden. My sister signed the papers 2 days later, left the hospital that same night. No goodbye, just a folded note I found the next morning. "Please raise her better than I ever could. You always had the heart of a mother. I never did." I taped that note inside my Bible, right next to the verse I had underlined in college. "Defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed." Psalm 82:3. I read it every night for weeks as Eden slept against my chest. That was the beginning of our story, of the lie that felt like love, of the life we built on both truth and silence. I didn't know it then, but one day that silence would crack and everything I tried to protect would be tested. The first time I brought Eden home, the house felt different. Not just quieter, not just warmer, but fuller, as if something eternal had taken up space in my little 2 bedroom world. I had bought a crib secondhand, painted the walls a soft sage green, hung twinkle lights over the window. Everything was ready except me. I kept waiting for someone to knock on the door and say, "You're not her real mom. You don't belong in this story." But no one ever came. And Eden, with her tiny fingers and steady breath, was mine. Neighbors brought food. My church group dropped off diapers, wipes, and casseroles. They called her my miracle baby. I didn't correct them. Some truths are quiet, and some lies are kindness dressed in hope. I remember late nights sitting in the rocking chair, Bible open on my lap, Eden asleep on my chest. I would whisper verses over her softly, as if sealing a promise. "You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I will never leave you nor forsake you. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted." Not because I knew exactly what I was doing, but because I believed that even if I wasn't enough, God was. Years passed and Eden grew fast. She had my curls, or so everyone said. and her eyes sparkled with a kind of curiosity that made the world feel brand new. She called me Mama by the time she was 2. By the time she was 5, she was asking questions about everything. Why do we pray before bed? Where do hugs come from? Did God make cookies? She never asked where she came from, not yet. My sister sent a card for Eden's 3rd birthday, just a small envelope, no return address, with a single line written inside, "Thank you for loving her when I couldn't." I cried when I read it, and then I folded it away into the same Bible next to her note from the hospital. I prayed for her that night, not out of anger, but out of grief, and maybe just a little out of guilt. When Eden started school, I told the office I was her biological mother, signed the forms, filled out the emergency contact lines, carried the weight of that lie like it was stitched to every signature. I had built a life on love, but love, I learned, is heavy when it's tied to silence. Still, we had joy, movie nights on the couch, Saturday pancake breakfast, sticky fingers in cookie dough, painted handprints on the refrigerator door. I took pictures of everything, framed her first drawing, recorded her laugh like it was a song I didn't want to forget. At church, people said she looked just like me. Same smile, same dimples. Sometimes I smiled back and said, "She's all mine." And in my heart, I whispered a prayer. Lord, help me hold this gift well, even if it was never mine to begin with. But even in joy, the truth stayed close, quiet but not gone, like a letter tucked in a drawer, just waiting to be read. And the older Eden got, the more I felt it. One day, this child I love, like my own, would ask the one question I didn't know how to answer. Where did I really come from? And when that moment came, I didn't know if she'd see my love, or only the lie. But for now, she was 7, curled up on the couch with a blanket and hot chocolate, laughing at a cartoon dog on the screen. And in that moment, I wasn't her aunt, or her guardian, or her mistake. I was her mom, and she was my girl. And God, in His mercy, had allowed us this season. Raising a child you love more than life while hiding the truth of how they came to you is a strange kind of pain. Most days it feels normal, like love is enough, like God has covered the cracks with grace, but some days the silence feels louder than words. When Eden turned 8, she made a family tree in school. Each child brought in pictures of their parents, grandparents, even great-grandparents. She came home with her drawing proudly held in both hands. "Look, Mama, it's us," she said. I smiled, but my heart sank as I looked at the page. She had drawn herself with curly hair, me beside her with a big heart on my shirt, and nothing else. "No grandparents?" I asked gently. She shrugged. "You never talk about them." She wasn't wrong. I'd kept the past locked away, thinking silence was safer than explaining what I couldn't undo. That night, I sat in bed holding my Bible, staring at the folded notes tucked between Psalms and Proverbs. My sister's words stared back at me, ink slightly faded from time. "You always had the heart of a mother. I never did." I had tried to protect Eden, but in doing so, I had also erased pieces of who she was. I whispered, "Lord, was I wrong to hide this?" The next morning, I made pancakes, extra syrup just the way she liked. We laughed about her silly drawing, but something stayed with me. She was getting older, sharper, asking more questions, and I was running out of simple answers. At church, our pastor preached on John at 8 about truth setting us free. He said, "A love doesn't hide in the dark. It walks into the light, even when it hurts." I felt those words like a weight in my chest. My sister called a few weeks later. It had been nearly 2 years since I last heard her voice. "Hey," she said softly. "I just wanted to know if she's okay." "She's more than okay," I said. "She's thriving, happy, smart." There was a long pause. "I still don't deserve it," she said, "but I think about her every day." I didn't know what to say. I had forgiven her 100 times in my heart, but I didn't know how to invite her back into Eden's world. Not yet. That night, Eden asked me, why don't I have a dad? She wasn't angry, just curious. I set down the dish towel and sat with her on the couch. "There are lots of kinds of families," I said carefully. "Some have a mom and dad, some have grandparents, some have one really strong person who loves them more than anything." She looked up at me. "Like you?" I smiled. Like me. She nodded slowly, then hugged me tight, and I prayed silently, God, give me the wisdom to know when it's time to tell her everything. Over the next year, the questions kept coming. Little ones, casual ones, each like a pebble tapping the surface of still water. Do we have cousins? Why don't we visit your sister? Did I look like you when I was born? I answered with grace, but inside, I was bracing for the moment she would ask what I feared most. And when that day came, I wouldn't lie. But I didn't know how to tell her either. Eden was 10 when she started journaling. She'd leave her notebook half open on the dining table. One evening, I glanced at the page as I passed. Sometimes I feel like I came from nowhere. Mama loves me a lot, but I wonder who I really am. Tears blurred my vision. It was time. The silence, however well-intentioned, had become a wall between us, and I knew that love, real love, isn't afraid of hard truths. But even with conviction in my heart, I hesitated. How do you tell a child, I'm not who you think I am, without breaking the very trust you've spent a lifetime building? I didn't have the answer yet, but I knew I had to start praying for the courage to find it. Because one day soon, Eden would need the truth. And when that moment came, I wanted her to hear it not as betrayal, but as love that chose her again and again. I once believed that if love was strong enough, it could hold everything together, even a secret. But secrets don't stay quiet forever, especially when the person you're keeping them from is the one you love most. Eden was 11 the day it started to unravel. It began with something simple, a doctor's visit for a routine checkup. They asked if there was any family history of a particular condition, and I froze. For a second too long, just long enough for her to notice. Is there something wrong? She asked, eyes wide, voice calm. No, sweetie, I said quickly, just thinking. But the moment lingered, like a pause that never truly ends. That night, she asked, why don't we ever talk about your family? I took a deep breath. We just don't see them often anymore. She nodded, but I could see her mind working behind her eyes. A few weeks later, we were watching a movie when she looked at me suddenly and asked, do I look like you? The question came so softly, I almost missed it. You've got my smile, I said. She didn't look convinced. What about my nose or my eyes? You've got a little of everything. She paused. Have I ever seen my baby pictures? My stomach turned. In that moment, I realized how carefully I'd built this life, brick by loving brick, but never gave her the foundation of truth. I found one picture from the hospital, the only one I had of her as a newborn in my arms. She stared at it. Who took this? I hesitated, then whispered, someone who loved you. The questions came faster after that, little ones at first. Where was I born? What hospital? Why don't I have a birth certificate in the baby book? She was smart, observant, and deep down she already knew. She just didn't know what to name the feeling. The tipping point came on a Saturday afternoon. She was doing a school project on ancestry. We pulled out documents for her to build a basic tree. As she sorted through them, she found a sealed envelope tucked into the back of a file folder. I hadn't meant for her to see it, but I hadn't hidden it well enough either. She opened it. Inside was a legal document, an adoption record, her name, my name, and someone else's name listed as her biological mother. She stared at it like it was written in another language. When she turned to me, she wasn't crying. Her face was still, like glass right before it breaks. What is this? She asked. My throat went dry. Eden, is this real? I nodded slowly. The moment I had feared for over a decade had arrived. You're not my mom. Yes, I am, I said firmly. I've always been your mom, since the moment you were born. But not really, she whispered. I reached for her hand. She pulled it away. You lied to me, she said, voice cracking, for my whole life. She stood trembling. I don't even know who I am. Then she walked out of the room, leaving the envelope on the table. That night, I sat on the edge of her bed. She pretended to be asleep, or maybe she really was. I couldn't tell through the quiet. I whispered, I know you're hurting, and I know this feels like everything is broken, but I never, ever stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. I placed the old red Bible next to her pillow, with both notes inside, one for my sister, one for me. Inside mine, I had written, You were never my mistake. You were always my miracle. I just didn't know how to tell you that the miracle started with a broken beginning. I prayed long that night, not just for her to forgive me, but for her to see me again. As the mother who had chosen her, fought for her, loved her more deeply than words could ever say. And even though the door was cracked, the silence between us had never felt heavier. But I knew I had to wait, because trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. And love, real love, waits. The next morning, the house felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just heavier, like the walls themselves were waiting to see what would happen next. Eden came down for breakfast without a word, no smile, no eye contact. She sat at the table, stared at her bowl of cereal, and barely touched it. I asked if she wanted to talk. She shook her head. I didn't push. I'd already pushed my luck for 11 years. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. Worse than sleepless nights, worse than diaper changes and school stress. This was different. This was silence soaked in betrayal. And I couldn't fix it with pancakes or bedtime stories. She barely spoke to me. She went to school, did her homework, ate her meals. But something in her was shut off, like a door I no longer had the key to. I respected her space, but I kept showing up, driving her to school, packing her lunch, leaving notes in her backpack that said, "I still love you." One night I walked past her door and heard sniffles, soft ones. I stood there just listening, heart aching. Then I knocked gently. "Can I come in?" A long pause, then, "Yeah." She sat on the bed, hugging her knees, eyes puffy, voice small. "Why didn't you tell me?" I sat beside her slowly. I didn't know when, and I was afraid that if I did, you wouldn't love me anymore. She looked up, tears spilled over. "That's not fair," she said. "You decided for me." She was right. I took a deep breath. "You're allowed to be angry. I would be too, and I won't defend the lie. But I want to tell you everything now, not just the paperwork, the why." She nodded once, so I told her about the night her mother showed up, about the tears, the hospital, the first time I held her. I told her about the name Eden, chosen because it meant beginnings, because I believed that even in the middle of our family's brokenness, God had planted something new. She listened, quiet, still hugging her knees. When I finished, she said, "So, she didn't want me?" I shook my head quickly. "She did, but she didn't know how. And she loved you enough to give you to someone who could." Tears streamed down her face. I handed her the Bible. Inside, there's a note from her, and one from me. She opened it slowly, read both letters in silence, then whispered, "She said she thinks about me every day." "She does," I said softly. "I think she'd be proud of the person you're becoming." And we sat there for a long time. Finally, Eden spoke. "Does anyone else know?" "Only a few," I said. "I kept it quiet to protect you, not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want you to ever feel like you were less than mine." She looked at me. "Did you ever wish you had a different life?" "No," I said firmly. "Not for 1 second." She reached for my hand. "I'm still really mad. I know, but I don't want to lose you." I held her hand tight. "You never will." That was the start, not of healing completely, but of something real. A small door cracked open again, not wide, but enough for light to start coming in. Over the next few weeks, we talked more, not just about the past, but about the future. She asked questions, some painful, some unexpected. "Do I have a dad?" "I don't know much," I admitted. "Your mom didn't share everything, but I can help you find answers if and when you're ready." She nodded. I want to meet her someday, just to see her face." I smiled. "I think she'd want that too." One Sunday morning, we sat in church as the choir sang softly. Eden reached for my hand during the final hymn. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her fingers wrapped around mine said more than words ever could. Love doesn't erase the truth. It walks through it. And that day, we started walking through it together. Telling Eden the truth didn't end the storm. It just gave it a name. The lie was no longer hidden, but the pain didn't vanish. It settled in slowly, like dust in conversations and glances and in long silences at dinner. Still, something had changed. She saw me, not just as the woman who raised her, but as someone who had failed her and still loved her anyway, We took things one day at a time. Sometimes she would ask questions out of nowhere. Did she ever hold me? Did she pick my name? I answered honestly, even when it hurt. Yes, she held you, but only for a moment. And no, I picked your name, because I believed God was giving both of us a new beginning. She started seeing a counselor from church, a sweet older woman named Helen, calm, kind, and never pushy. Eden didn't tell me what they talked about, but I noticed she began to smile more afterward, even laugh again. Little by little, the walls between us softened, not gone, but less sharp. And then one night she surprised me. I want to meet her, she said. I looked up from the dishes. Your mom. She nodded. I dried my hands, walked over, and sat with her on the couch. Are you sure? I think I need to see her, even just once. I want to understand. I hesitated. I can help make that happen, I said, but I want you to know, whatever happens, I'm still your mom. She smiled gently. I know. I hadn't spoken to my sister in months. I still had her last number saved, but I wasn't sure it would work. I called. It rang 3 times. Then her voice answered. Hannah? I hadn't heard her call me that in years. Eden wants to meet you, I said. Silence. Are you sure? She whispered. She is. She let out a shaky breath. I don't deserve it, no, I said, but she still wants it, and that has to mean something. We met at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Neutral ground, no pressure. Eden wore her favorite blue hoodie, hands tucked into her sleeves, eyes alert but unsure. My sister walked in slowly. She looked older, tired, but clean, sober. When she saw Eden, she froze, then whispered, You look just like him. Eden tilted her head. Do you mean my dad? My sister nodded slowly. Eden looked down. I don't want to know everything right now, just some things. They sat together for almost an hour. I watched from a nearby table, gave them space, held back tears. When it ended, Eden hugged her. It was awkward, gentle, but real. And in that moment, something long broken began to mend. In the weeks that followed, they exchanged messages, small steps, no expectations, just honesty. And Eden, to my surprise, handled it all with grace. I'm not angry anymore, she said one night. I think I'm just that. That's allowed. I said, sadness means you cared. She turned to me. I want you to know something. What is it? I know you lied, but I also know you love me through it, and I don't want to keep punishing you. Tears welled up in my eyes. I would walk through all of it again just to have you. I said every lie, every tear, every long night because you were worth it. She hugged me tight and whispered, You still are my mom. That hasn't changed. That night, I pulled out an old journal I had kept from her early years. Photos, memories, moments frozen in time. I gave it to her. She flipped through it slowly, stopped at a picture of us at the park. She was 3. Ice cream on her face, me laughing behind her. She smiled. This is real, she said. Yes, I replied. All of it. Love doesn't erase the past. It gathers it, heals it, and makes room for the future. We were still standing, not in spite of the fallout, but because we chose to face it together. There's something sacred about being chosen, not by birth, not by force, but by love. Eden was never mine by biology, but every inch of her story was carved into my heart long before she ever spoke her first word. And now, after years of silence, truth, pain, and healing, we had come full circle. She was 16 the day she stood up in church and shared her testimony. I didn't know she was planning to speak. I was sitting near the back, just proud to see her serving with the youth group. Then she walked to the front, took the microphone, and smiled. My name is Eden, she said, and I used to think my life began with a lie. My breath caught in my chest. But now I know my life began with a choice someone made to love me even when it wasn't easy, even when it meant giving up everything. She looked at me. She chose me, and I choose her too. I wept, openly, freely, not because of guilt, but because of grace. The kind of grace you can't earn, the kind that covers what time and truth alone can't fix, the kind that only God can write into a story. After church, she hugged me tight. You okay? She whispered. I nodded through the tears. Better than okay. Later that year, she asked if she could call her birth mom, Mom, too, not instead of me. alongside me. "I want her to know I care," she said, "but I don't want to hurt you." I smiled. Love isn't divided, it's multiplied. We met as a family in a park that spring. The three of us, no secrets, no shadows, just the strange beauty of healing. Eden brought a photo album. She showed her birth mom the old journal I had kept, the drawings, the milestones. Her mom cried, quiet, shaken tears. "You gave her the life I couldn't," she said. "I don't deserve this grace." "No," I said gently, "but God gives us what we don't deserve and what we couldn't give ourselves." That day I realized something. This story wasn't just about motherhood, it was about redemption, about how broken people can still choose love, still fight for light, still write a new ending with the same old beginning. Eden graduated high school 2 years later. She stood on that stage with a cap on her head and a diploma in her hand. And I thought back to the hospital room where it all began, where one life was handed to me in silence and now stood before me, bold, brilliant, and full of purpose. She's in college now, studying psychology, wants to work with foster kids, says they deserve someone who understands what it's like to have their identity feel like a puzzle missing half its pieces. She calls me every Sunday, sometimes to talk about classes, sometimes just to say she misses home. Last Christmas, she gave me a framed note. Inside was a page from her journal. It said, "Being loved doesn't mean being lied to. It means being seen fully and still held. You held me even when I didn't know who I was, and now I know I am loved, I am chosen, I am yours." I hung it in the hallway, right next to the framed verse from Psalm 82, the one I read when I first brought her home. "Defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed." It's funny how the word gives you an anchor long before the storm. Eden's story isn't perfect, neither is mine, but it's real. And in this family, real is enough, love is enough, and the truth, once feared, once hidden, is now the foundation of everything we've become. So when people ask, "Is she really your daughter?" I smile. Yes, I say, she is, in every way that matters. Because love is not about who gave birth to you. It's about who never stopped choosing you.